I'm starting all of my peppers, snapdragons, and marigolds today, and I'm going to take you along with me. I'm going to talk you through my soil mix, what I'm planting in, the seeds I'm planting, and just go over all of, I guess, my tips and tricks for seed starting. If you're new here, my name is Sam. I garden here in Michigan Zone 6A, and I grow my entire garden from seed, with one exception. Last year I did buy some store-bought marigolds because my marigolds did not do well last year, which I will get into in this video. I also put a question box on my Instagram last night saying I was doing all the seed starting today and asked you guys to put any questions in there that you wanted to know. So I do have those up on my phone now, so I'll go through them throughout the video to hit on the topics you guys really want to know. So if you're not already following me on Instagram, it's at More Than Gardening, and I like to just put the question box before I film these videos. That way I can hit the points that you guys really want to know. So I'll be answering those for this video and just going over my whole process. Starting off with what I'm growing in, I use these 6 cells. If you watch my onion seed starting video, which I will link up here, I think it's this corner, I use all the same stuff. So some of this might be a little repetitive, but if you're new here, this will be a good overview for you. So I use these 6 cells to start all my seeds. They're from Epic Gardening. I'll leave them linked below, and I have a discount code More Than Gardening 5, which you can use to save some money. And then I put them in these 10-20 trays. They're really sturdy, so you can hold them up with one hand and they don't like flop around. They're not flimsy, and you can use these year over year. And then soil wise, I get a lot of questions on soil. You can use, what I do is I use a seed starting mix. Today, I'm going to be using this one. It's Espama. I don't know. Whatever. I will link this one below. It's just an organic seed starting mix. You don't have to use seed starting mix. It's more of a nice to have than a must have. Seed starting mix is really, really light and fluffy. So if you think about your seed, that's like your seedling that's bursting out of the seed, it then needs to make its roots. The roots then need to work its way down to establish, and then the seedling needs to pop up through the soil to get to the light and to start growing. So a nice, light, fluffy, airy soil makes it really easy for that seedling to kind of work its way and maneuver, but it's not totally necessary. Seeds start outside in the ground all the time in compact soil, rough soil. You don't need to use seed starting mix. It's, like I said, it's a nice to have, but don't get caught up if you can't find seed starting soil. But if you have started seeds in the past and haven't had good germination and you've always used like a potting mix, maybe try seed starting soil this year. That might be like the little thing that just helps your seeds germinate a little better. So again, I'm just using this one, and I like to mix everything in this big tote or this big bin. And then it allows me to just like scoop up the soil in these really easy. So first I went in with my seed starting mix, and then I like to add worm castings. This one, I'll link a similar one below in the description. This just gives like a nice organic nutrient boost to your soil. That way your seedlings have a little bit to feed on as they're growing. And then I'm just going in with a cup of worm castings. And actually, I'm gonna do 2 because that didn't look like enough to me. And this is a lot of soil, so I'm gonna have leftovers again. And then if you saw my onion starting video, you will know that I mixed in a little bit of fertilizer with the soil when I did my onions. I did that because onions stay in these same cells their entire life before they go in the garden. Everything else I grow, so right now the peppers, the marigolds, and the snapdragons I'm growing today, they're gonna start in these 6 cells. And then once they get bigger, once they get like 2 to 3 true leaves, I'm gonna pot them up into a larger pot to give them more space. And that's when I'm gonna add fertilizer into the soil. So I'll have a future video on that whole process, but you can just note that for seed starting today, I'm not adding any fertilizer. I'm just doing my seed starting mix and my worm castings. And then I'm just going through here and mixing everything together to evenly distribute the worm castings. And there's some kind of chunky bits in here that I'm gonna break up. And you can just see how like light and airy this is because it's that seed starting mix. So you can see how easy it would be for a really fragile, weak, young seedling to just like pop through the surface. So that's why I like seed starting mix, but again, you don't have to use it. I plant a lot of seeds directly into my garden in the spring, and that's in just like any old topsoil, and they germinate just fine. So, and then if you're interested in knowing like my timing of like when I'm starting certain seeds, when I'm transplanting them in the garden, what I'm growing, etc. I do have a garden planner. I'll link it below. And that gives a whole entire map of what I'm growing this year, how many I'm growing, when I'm starting my seeds, when I'm transplanting them. And it just gives like a good overview of my garden overall. So I will link that below. And then you want your soil to be moist. So you have to add water to it. You don't want it to be too dry. What triggers a seed to germinate is temperature and moisture. So it needs to be around the right temperature for them to germinate, and then they need moisture. So this is really heavy, but I'm gonna add a little bit of water. And I'm just gonna mix it around. And mine was a little too dry, so I'm just gonna add a little bit more. Whew. Give it a good mix. Could probably be using like a big spoon right now.
I thought we had a shovel in here. Oh,
do we have a shovel?
Huh?
Do we have a shovel?
Yeah, here.
Okay, thank you. I can stop using this. Thank you. Okay.
Want some gloves?
No, it's too late. I've committed to the dirt.
Committed. Okay.
So the amount of water you're going to want is going to be based on how the soil feels. I can't really give you an exact like this many cups of water, but what you want is you want it wet enough where it will clump up in your hand, but you don't want it to be dripping. So this piece right here is pretty good because it's clumping and there's no dripping. So this is a really good moisture level because it's clumping, but it's not dripping. See, it clumps, and then it also doesn't just like fall out. It's nice. So I'm just gonna fill all of my cells with my soil, and I'm pushing them down just to make sure that they're totally filled and totally compact. You don't want them too tight to the point where your seedling can't move around in there and can't set its roots and come up, but you don't want it so light and airy that like one of the first times you water it, all the soil falls out. So a good little in between works. So I'm gonna fill all these and then we will get to the specific seeds that I am sowing. All right, I have all of my trays filled up. I have 72 in this tray and 72 in this one. And I'm gonna start off with my Snapdragons. Snapdragons are a really fun flower, and they're great for if you're the type of gardener in a colder zone and you're really eager to get something in your garden. Snapdragons is a perfect flower to grow because they're cold hardy. You can plant them outside before your last frost. So still when it's getting below freezing at night, they can totally handle that. So it's the first flower that I plant out in my garden. And then they can grow well into the fall. Around like midsummer, when it gets really hot, they're gonna start like not dying back, but they aren't gonna produce as many blooms because they don't do well in a lot of heat. But I just left mine in there last summer, and then in the fall, they came back around and started blooming again. So Snapdragons are also a really fun one for pollinators, like because bees like to climb in the little, like, I guess it'd be the bloom or the flower. Basically, if you've never seen a Snapdragon, I'll try to insert a picture here, but they open up if you like pinch the backside of it. So the bees actually crawl in there and they're like inside the flower, and then they crawl out with all the pollen, and it's just a really cool thing to see. So they're a fun interactive plant. I last year grew Orange Wonder from Botanical Interest. I will link them below. Hopefully they're in stock by now. I wasn't able to get my hands on those seeds this year, unfortunately. So I just picked up some from Burpee from my local Home Depot. These ones are Ford Hook Tall Mixed Colors. Hopefully this will focus and you can see these ones. And then I picked up some from Eden Brothers. These are the Twinny Bronze Shades. And these ones are supposed to look very similar to the ones I grew last year. So I'm really excited about these ones. So I'm gonna do 2 of the 6 cells of the Eden Brothers ones, and then 1 with the Burpees ones. So a total of 18 Snapdragons that I'll be starting. So I'm starting my Snapdragons here March 1st, zone 6A, and then I'm gonna put them outside of my garden probably about 2 to 3 weeks before my last frost. So Snapdragons are a little different with their seed starting and planting than most plants you grow because you're not going to dig a hole, put the seed in, and cover the plants up. The seeds themselves actually need light to germinate. So you're just going to sprinkle the seeds directly on the top of the soil, and you're going to give them like a little bit of a pat to work them into the soil. And then that's it. So you don't want any dirt covering them because they need that light to germinate. And oh my gosh, this is like, there's barely any seeds in here. So I just opened up this seed packet and I'm kind of disappointed. There's not very many seeds in here at all. I'm a little like, what's going on? Are they in the top? Like, I don't know. Well, okay, change of plans. I'm only gonna do one tray of the Eden Brothers, and these are Snapdragons are like the tiniest seeds on earth. You probably can't even see them here in the camera because they're just little black dots. They're like 10% of the size of an onion seed probably. So I'm just gonna try to sprinkle some of these. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little disappointed and I don't know, I guess I'll just these are really tiny. They're all kind of sticking. We're gonna sprinkle as many as I guess we're gonna sprinkle the whole packet just on this one, and then the other two, we will do these burpees ones. Hopefully there's more seeds in here. I already know there are because I can hear them actually when they shake. Okay, so let's open these bad boys up. Oh, there's a jillion seeds in here. I think you can you see? Yeah, okay. So, and they're so small, don't even try to like pick them and place them. It's not gonna work. Just sprinkle your seeds right on the surface. 2 6 cells of the Ford Hook Tall, and then 1 of the Eden Brothers. And then I still have quite a few left in here. So I will save these for next year. Thank you. And I'm just gonna seal this bag up with a little bit of tape. And then, so I don't lose track of like what is what, I like to just use painter's tape and a Sharpie to write what I planted where. So I'm gonna do the Eden Brothers Snapdragons. I'm just gonna call Eden. And then wrote it with my Sharpie, and then I just do the front of it. And then the other ones I'm gonna do, it's gonna write Snap for Snapdragons. I'll know what that means. And if I forget, I'll rewatch this video. And then I just put it on the front. So now that the Snapdragons are done, we got 3 6 cells of those. I'm gonna do Marigolds next just to finish off flowers, and then the whole rest of this tray is going to be Marigolds. I grow Marigolds because they are a pest deterrent for all of my other plants in my garden. They're a pretty flower to have in your garden, but honestly, the whole reason I grow them is just to deter pests. Marigolds give off like a weird scent that bugs don't like. And if you surround your tomato plants with them, or your carrots, or your peppers, or your squash, or whatever you're growing, if you surround them with marigolds, they're really gonna help keep pests and like insects away. So I like to plant a ton of marigolds. This year I'm doing Kilimanjaro white, which is gonna be a new variety for me. They're these nice pretty white ones. I'm doing Pacific Beauty Blend. This is another new variety for me this year. And then I'm doing Favorite Blend, or French Favorite Blend of the marigolds. And this will be my 3rd year growing this variety. These are ones that I know are gonna do really well. These two I'm taking a gamble on because I've never grown them before, but I do think they're gonna be fine. I will link all of these flowers below. One of the questions I got on Instagram when I put the question box up was, why am I starting my marigolds so early? All of the seed packets will say to wait till about 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost, which would be, my last frost is about May 12th. So 6 weeks before that would be like beginning of April, end of March. So I'm definitely doing marigolds early. However, my marigolds last year did really, really bad. I said in the beginning of this video, I ended up having to buy marigolds from the store. I got some from TSC, and I think I might have gotten a few from Home Depot too. My seedlings were just so weak, and so many of them died. And then, like before I even planted them out, at the seedling stage, they were dying. And then when I put them in my garden, they were all dying. And I just did not have a good marigold season. So I'm starting them really early this year in hopes that I can really like cater to them while they're young and get them really, really strong before they go outside. And also, if I don't have a good yield from this seed starting round now, when I get like maybe a few weeks down the road, once I am like starting tomatoes and things, I can plant more marigolds then to fill the gaps for whatever isn't successful now. Typically, like rule of thumb with planting seeds is you want your hole to be about 2 to 3 times the size of your seed, but it'll also tell you on the packet, on the back of my packet, I'm seeing seed depth 1/4 inch. So I don't really have a fancy tool or anything. I just use my finger, or right now I'm going to use this Sharpie, and I just go in and I make a little hole, and I'm going to do all of my holes at once. So I'm going to go through here and I'm just going to put about 2, maybe 3 seeds per hole, and then we'll come back. So the last of my marigold seeds are in their little holes. So I'm just going to cover them up lightly with the soil. And then I also, just to add a little bit, is I grab a little bit more of that seed starting soil and I just sprinkle it on top and spread it just to even it out. Next, I'm going to start all of my peppers, and I've already gone through here and labeled the sides of them to say everything I'm growing, just to save a little bit of time. And if you followed me on Instagram last year or saw any of my garden tours here on YouTube last year, you will know I went really overboard on the peppers. I did 66 peppers last year. It was way too many. We are still drowning in peppers. I have so many pickled jalapeños and banana peppers canned up. I have like an entire freezer full of peppers still. We are using them. I use like frozen bell peppers and frozen jalapeños, serranos in recipes all the time, which is great, but like we just have way more than we need to. So I am cutting back this year and I'm growing about 40 pepper plants, but I am still starting 60 seeds. Some of my pepper seeds are from last year, but I did buy a lot of new ones, and down below I'll link the ones that I get along with a discount code if you want to get the same ones. But I'm going to grow jalapeno, specifically the Megatron version from Botanical Interest. These are really, really big. They can get like this big and like this wide. I found that they're not as spicy as the smaller ones. They're a little bit less just because they are so big, but they're super, super good still. And then I'm doing banana peppers, bell peppers, poblanos. Jimmy Nardellos are a new variety. I have Serranos. We love Serranos. These are really good diced up and then mixed into ground beef to make like burgers in the summer. So I love growing Serranos. And then these are Cayennes. I grew these last year too. They did really well. And then I have habaneros. I tried last year. None of my seeds like really germinated or sprouted. So I don't even really need habaneros in my garden, but just like I want to see if I can do it this year. So I'm going to start a few habaneros. This is, I guess, more Cayennes. What are these? Thai chilies. We love Thai chilies. I want to get like 4, maybe 6 Thai chili plants. They're really small. They look like little Christmas lights. They're so spicy, but they're really, really good in like Asian style stir fries. So if you like that type of food, I suggest you grow Thai chilies. And then these are just more jalapenos and more bell peppers. All the seeds are like pretty much the same size, and they all require a 1/4 inch depth. So I'm going to start just making my holes again, just like I did for the flowers. And then one thing that's different about germinating peppers from the flowers, which you'll see once we go inside and get these under the grow lights, I do use heating mats to help germinate my peppers. They require a little bit more warmth to germinate, especially the spicier peppers. I think that's part of the reason I wasn't successful with my habaneros last year germinating, because I didn't get them on a heat mat soon enough. So I will be using a heat mat for this entire tray. I'm not going to use one for the flowers because they don't need it. And then my peppers along with my flowers will be in these seed cells until they get about 2 to 3 true leaves, and then they will be potted up. And then the peppers and the marigolds aren't going to be planted out into the garden until about a week after my last frost. It's usually like 3rd week of May is when I plant everything out. And then I'm just looking through the questions that you guys submitted on Instagram, and quite a few people were wondering if you have to seed start inside early or if you can just directly sow seeds outside in the spring. And if you're in a warmer zone, so if you live in a warmer climate than I do here in Michigan, you have a longer growing season, you probably would have enough time to plant a seed in the spring and then have a long enough growing season for the plant to go from seed all the way up to maturity and harvest your peppers in that same year. Here in Michigan, because it is so cold and it's only warm for so long, I don't have enough time between my last frost in May and my first frost in October to actually put a pepper seed outside, wait for it to grow, and get a really good harvest before it dies from the cold again. So that's why I have to start these seeds inside. But if you don't want to seed start and you don't have time to do the seeds directly outside, like what I just explained, being in a cold zone, you can just buy starter plants from a nursery. All the seed starting is like one way of doing it. You can always just buy a plant at local nurseries, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever is near you. That's what I did my first year, and those plants worked out really well for me. I just seed start now because one, I enjoy it. Two, there's way more of a variety of what you can grow when you're buying seeds. A nursery might offer like 3 varieties of peppers or something, where like the limit is almost non-existent online when you're buying seeds. So I enjoy that. And then I also just like to have total control of my plant from seed to harvest. I like to know exactly what soil is used. I want to make sure there's nothing sprayed on them. And I just want to make sure they're growing, I guess, to like my personal standards. And if you're growing a lot of different plants in your garden, it's a lot cheaper to do it this way, because you can buy a pack of seeds for like a few bucks, and like one starter plant is like $5. So like my garden, I'm growing 40 pepper plants. If I bought 40 starter plants at $5 a pop, what is that, $200? Like I can't do that, where a few bags, like a few things of seeds were like $20 at most. It's probably way less than that. So it's a lot more cost effective to seed start. And then just like the flowers, I do like 2 to 3 seeds per hole. And this one should have bought more Thai seeds, because this is going to be about 1 per hole. So hopefully these germinate. And then once they do sprout, I will thin these down to just 1 plant per seed cell. I got a lot of questions on Instagram about watering seedlings in general. And the advice that I always give is water your plants when your soil is dry. They're gonna be hurt by overwatering before they're hurt by underwatering. So rather than give you a time limit and say like, this is how often I water, it's going to be different for you, because your humidity levels may be different in your house. Your seed starting mix may be different. It may hold on to more moisture, hold on to less moisture. So for me, for watering, part of the reason I use these seed cells is because they have slits on the sides and slits on the bottom. So I can see all the way down to the bottom what my soil looks like. So I just look at the soil, and if it's dry, about 1 inch below the surface, I know my plants are thirsty and they need water, so I'll water them. And if it's still wet about 1 inch below, then I know that I cannot get this open, then I know that they are not thirsty and they don't need water. So I end up usually watering like, I don't know, maybe every week or so, but it really depends on what your soil looks like. And when your plants are older, they need more water. When they're younger, they need less. It's really something that you just need to gauge with your soil. And then another question I got was about fertilizing, which I did mention in the beginning of this video. Right now in the seed starting mix, I didn't put any actual fertilizer in there. I did do the worm castings to give a little bit of nutrients, but once my seedlings start having a couple true leaves, that's when I will add some liquid fertilizer to their water every other week. And then when I pot them up, which I'll record that like in a later video, I will mix granular fertilizer into that soil at that time. Another question I got, which is a pretty big like hot topic in the pepper growing community, is whether to prune or top your pepper plants or not. And basically that's just the process of, once your pepper gets to about 4 to 6 inches tall, you cut off the top, because it's supposed to encourage the plant to split off into 2 branches. Peppers naturally will do that. Like they will naturally grow into a fork. However, if you top them, it'll encourage them to do it earlier. And the thought process is, the earlier they do that, the longer the 2 individual stems are, the more peppers your plant will have. So I do top my pepper plants. I won't be topping all of them. I think the smaller pepper plants, like your Thai chilies, your Cayennes, jalapeños, Serranos, I do like topping those. And I think you can, I haven't actually like done a side by side to see how many more peppers I get topping versus not. So I don't have that data for you. But what I do know is when you top them and you have earlier branching, the plant as a whole becomes sturdier because it's not this like tall, spiny plant that just like wobbles back and forth in the wind. It's two stems rather than one. It's much sturdier, it's stronger. And I think even just the benefit of that alone makes worth topping for me. Now, when you do top it, you are setting the plant back a little bit because it's going to take longer to bear fruit. You might get more fruit, like I said, but because it takes longer, I don't top my larger pepper plants. So like my bell peppers, my poblanos, I'm not going to top those. I'm going to let them just do what they do. But all the smaller ones, I will top. And I will take you guys along for that process, like in future videos. All my pepper seeds are in. So just like the marigold, I'm just going to come in and cover them up with that soil. I'm going to take a little bit more of that seed starting mix and put it right on top and just spread it out nice and even. And then put my seeds away, and I'll link this organizer in the description. It is my favorite way to organize my seeds. I have everything in here for the whole season in alphabetical order, and it just makes saving your seeds easy and just organizing it really easy. So this is my method, and I'll link it in the description. So let's bring these inside and get them under the grow lights. I did add a humidity dome already to my marigolds and my snapdragons. So this one very carefully is going to go up here on this top shelf. And then for my peppers, they do need quite a bit of heat to germinate. So I do have a heat mat that is going to sit up here, and then I'm just going to plug it in, and I will link this one in the description of the video. So now I'm just going to take my tray of peppers and slide it onto my heat mat carefully. And then once it's on here, just like my flowers, I'm going to give them a humidity dome. And humidity domes just help trap moisture. They help create a humid environment. Like I said in the beginning of this video, seeds need water and temperature in order to germinate. So the dome just helps keep it warm in there, helps keep it moist. That way your soil's wet, which will help trigger germination. Like seed starting soil, humidity domes aren't a must-have. They're more of a nice-to-have. However, if you're seeing spotty germination and you're not using humidity domes, I highly recommend you just try them out. They have seemed to really work well for me. And the humidity dome is going to stay on here until about 50% of the seeds have sprouted. So you need the humidity to help the seeds germinate, but then once they're up, you don't want it to be super moist because then you can start having like fungus and mold and algae grow in your soil. So as soon as you see about 50% of your seeds pop up, you're going to take these domes off. And then at that point, you're also going to want to start doing like a little fan. I like to blow a fan on my seedlings about maybe like 3 to 4 days a week, about 50% of the time. That just helps them get a little more acclimated to the environment, because once they go outside, they're going to be dealing with a lot of wind. And then also that fan's going to help keep the top of your soil really dry. When the top of your soil is moist, that's when you start having like fungus gnats and mold and all those issues. So the fan really helps with that. And then these lights are going to stay on about 15 hours a day. I have automatic outlet timers that I have these grow lights plugged into. So they automatically turn the lights on in the morning and turn them off at night. I will link those in the description for you guys. And I have them running 15 hours a day, and that seems to work really well for me. And then as you can see, the actual lights are, I don't know, maybe 4 to 5 inches above the seedlings. They look good. You'll know your lights are at the right height when you have a really like normal looking seedling, I guess is the best way to say it. If your seedlings start growing and the stems are really, really long and skinny, that's what's called seedlings being leggy. You know your lights aren't close enough, so you'll want to lower your lights. And then if your seedlings are like burning on the top, then you know your lights are too close. So if you have the same setup as I do, and I will link this entire setup in the description of the video, you can just kind of follow what I'm doing. It's about 4 inches above. And then if you get a different one, just judge it based on how your seedlings look. I will come through here every few days and just check on them to make sure the soil is still moist. If it doesn't look moist for some reason, I'll take a spray bottle and just spray the surface. If it looks too moist and these humidity domes are like dripping, I'll come in here and I'll just open them up and like give a little bit of air circulation. But other than that, there's not much that I need to do to care for them between now and when they sprout. So I think that should be all on how to start your peppers, your snapdragons, and your marigolds. And honestly, a lot of the seed starting like advice or tutorial can be done for just about any plant. But as I go through the season and start more of my seeds like broccoli, tomatoes, tomatillos, herbs, more flowers, I will document it all here on YouTube. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more. If you want to see even more content, I'm really active on Instagram over at @morethangardening, TikTok @morethangardening_. And I'm really excited for this gardening season. These videos so far have been super fun. I hope you've enjoyed them too. If you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like, leave a comment. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.